My husband's beloved was trapped in the morgue and missed the last sight of my grandmother. His eyes were red and he locked me in the freezer. The struggling fingers were broken by him, and the cold air poured into the brain for the last time. I heard the sound of the lock falling. If you hurt Ranran's grandmother, I will punish you to guard her here. The plea was turned into fog by the cold air, and the tears were condensed into ice. At the last second of my loose consciousness, I remembered the hot affection of 18-year-old Xiao Jingyi. I want to study medicine in order to cure Miao Miao's illness. 3 days later, Xiao Jingyi suddenly remembered me, and the text message he sent was tough. Just want you to admit your mistake. Is it that difficult? Damn it, how can I open my mouth? 1. Xiao Jingyi's face was deep when his hand holding the mobile phone showed blue veins. On the mobile phone text message, the full-screen message did not receive a reply. Yin Miaoling, haven't you made a mistake yet? Do you know how bad your behavior is? Porridge Ran just wanted to come to the hospital to see her grandmother on the last night, but you were jealous and left her in irreparable regret. I'll punish you, shouldn't you? How many times have you said it? She's just my sister. I just want you to know your mistakes. Is it that difficult? The mobile phone was smashed heavily on the table. He had no choice but to rub his temples, and his eyes were full of red blood. In the past few days, he has been heartbroken in order to coax the so-called sister. Just like now, Zhang Zhiran in the master bedroom came from a sob. He didn't even have time to put on his shoes and rushed in nervously. I'm not afraid of porridge. I'm here. He gently patted Zhang Zhiran's back, with inexhaustible tenderness and pity in his eyes. On the bed, the girl who was awakened by the nightmare shed tears helplessly and pulled Xiao Jingyi's hand tightly, as if she had grasped the last hope. Brother Jingyi, that's just a nightmare. My grandmother didn't die, did she? Is she still waiting for me in the hospital? I'm going to see Grandma. She was about to get up with red eyes but was stopped by Xiao Jingyi. He fixed her in his arms, and Zhang Zhiran beat Xiao Jingyi's chest as if to vent his anger. Why can't I see my grandmother? Xiao Jingyi, you compensate me. Xiao Jingyi did not hide and let her vent, and her tone was flattering and gentle. Ranran, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. If beating can make you feel comfortable, then I'd rather you beat me to death. Zhang Zhiran seemed to be weak in tears. He fell weakly into Xiao Jingyi's arms, and his eyes were dull. It's useless. It's useless to do anything. Grandma, I can't come back anymore. Xiao Jingyi sighed helplessly. Ranran, I will definitely seek justice for you. I, who was watching from the side, was like a third party who peeped at other people's feelings. If it's not my husband and I'm not a ghost, I must love to watch this kind of good play. Zhang Zhiran's eyes were red, and he roared at Xiao Jingyi. Life, can she compensate me? I was stunned for a moment. I'm afraid it will be as she wishes. I really paid this life to her. At the last moment of the warmth, I smiled with relief. It's not because I want to open it, but before people freeze to death, the blood flows back and the brain will have an illusion. Therefore, I felt the last warmth. The moment my soul came out, I faced my horrifying face. 10 fingers were broken, the freezer was scratched with bloodstains by me, the nails were turned over, the broken fingers were shaky, and a layer of mist condensed in the wide eyes. Even though I was dead, the suffocating despair still poured into my mind again. In such a helpless environment, I have forgotten the fear, and the desire to survive makes me unable to care about the pain. I begged to admit my mistake and cried bitterly. I only begged him to give me another chance to think about our 15 years of relationship, but he sentenced me to death with heavy hatred. You ruined Ranran's last meeting with her grandmother, and let her grandmother pass away with regret. I just punished you to be here and accompany her grandmother. She is already very kind to you. Listening to his hurried footsteps, my heart condensed inch by inch. I have taken my last breath, but I still died. He died in the cold morgue. Died in the self-righteous teenage love. 2. Ranran, Grandma has been buried. Let me take you to see her. Xiao Jingyi coaxed him very gently, and Zhang Zhiran cried on him. No, Grandma is not dead. Brother Jingyi, you are lying to me. You are joking with me, right? His eyes were full of pity and his tone was indignant. Ranran, don't worry, when I find Yin Miaoling, I will ask her to atone for your sins. It's too light to just imprison her and punish her. As soon as the words fell, he frowned inducibly, with a little tentative, and opened his mouth. Ranran, I gave you the key that day to calm you down, so I let her out. Did you? Let her out later. Zhang Zhiran's expression flashed with a trace of strangeness, but soon her eyes were full of tears. Brother Jingyi, are you blaming me for her? Or do you think I will be a bad woman like her? Hearing this sentence, I couldn't stop being in a trance. 3 days ago, I delivered food to Xiao Jingyi, who worked the night shift. He was rushing for an emergency operation when he casually threw his mobile phone to me. The chat record happened to stop at the cleansing of her and Zhang Zhiran. Ranran, the brown sugar water has been boiled. Remember to drink it. Ranran, the tickets for the concert have been snapped up. I'll pick you up on time. Ranran. Brother Jing, you are the best. When I think of such a good man as you, I only regret that I was born at the right time and didn't meet you earlier. I locked my eyebrows tightly, and the ambiguous record made my whole heart together. Coincidentally, Jiang Zhiran called at this time. Brother Jingyi, how is my grandmother? I'm so scared. Can you pick me up? I said in a cold-blooded voice. Do you know that he is a married man? Do you know what you are doing now? The tone over there turned into sarcasm in an instant. Doesn't he know that he has a wife? You should reflect on yourself. Is the skin wrinkled and loose, which makes Brother Jingyi bored? I almost forgot to say that I'm pregnant now. If such an excellent man as Jingyi doesn't have an heir, it's called a violent thing. Immediately she hung up the phone. I was so angry that I trembled all over, staring at the bright red word in surgery, but my heart ached again and again. I went home alone and couldn't sleep all night. I was full of confusion about the future, and my heart was endlessly entangled. I wanted to make it clear when Xiao Jingyi came back, but what I waited for was that he kicked open the door angrily. Yin Miaoling, do you still have humanity? Even beasts can't do such a scrupulous thing as you. Before I could say my resentment, he pulled me to the ground. Because of jealousy, you tricked Ranran into the morgue and made her miss the last meeting with her grandmother. Why didn't I find out before that you were such a cruel woman? He stared at me fiercely with cold eyes. I really regret it. Maybe I shouldn't have saved you at the beginning. This sentence is repeated in my ears. Until now, I have become a ghost and still can't forget it. Now he is holding Jiang Zhiran tightly in his arms and apologizing with guilt. We are the kindest. How can I doubt you? I just want to ask you. Did you see her go there after you let her out? After all, she did something wrong and left her grandmother with regrets. She should also go to her grandmother's grave to atone for her sins. Jiang Zhiran shook his head in a daze. I don't even want to see her. How can I know where she has gone? Brother Jingyi, do you still remember her? She pouted and was sullen. When I mention her, I feel angina pectoris, and I will think of grandma. Brother, please don't make me sad anymore. Xiao Jingyi pinched her little face with love on his face. Xiao Jingyi made a solemn oath to the tomb of Jiang Zhiran's grandmother. From now on, I will protect Ranran at all things, and I will never let her be bullied, otherwise the sky will thunder. It was heard in my ears and I only felt familiar with it. 12 years ago, 18-year-old Xiao Jingyi also took my hand and swore to the moon. In the future, if I lose Miao Miao, I will not be able to die, my soul will be scattered, and I will not be able to live forever. I quickly stopped him, patted the wood again, and hurriedly explained to the moon. Fools don't count nonsense. At that time I was suffering from a chronic disease. The doctor said that I would not live to be 30 years old. Xiao Jingyi resolutely chose to study medicine. Miao Miao, believe me, I only study medicine for you, and I want you to live a long life. But I only think it's funny that the oath is now. The doctor is right. I really didn't live to be 30 years old. 3 days later it will be my 30th birthday. Obviously I was about to escape the curse. But now I can only look at him and kiss other people's tears little by little. 3. After a few days of silence, Xiao Jingyi was obviously restless. After 15 years of love, I have never been as abnormal as this time, and I have been silent for several days. I can see that Xiao Jingyi can't sit and stand at ease. On the mobile phone the message kept flashing, but the person at the other end of the dialog box did not respond. Yin Miaoling, you are really too much this time. You don't know. Will I worry about you? Is it fun to run away from home and deliberately not reply to the message? Are you happy to see me nervous about you and care about you? Why do you have to get along with Ranran? Yin Miaoling, Ranran. I think the gap is obvious, and the balance in his heart has long been tilted. I can't tell what he is nervous and concerned about now. I'm afraid that something will happen to me, which will implicate him and affect his future. Or do you really have some old feelings for me? When he hurried to the basement, he was obviously a little at a loss. I put my hand on the doorknob and didn't stitch it down for a long time. What are you struggling with? What are you struggling with? I may have had the answer. Cold sweat fell, and he muttered to himself. Yin Miaoling, you better play with me on purpose. I laughed speechlessly. I expect it more than anyone else. It's just a prank. His hand holding the doorknob trembled gently, and his majestic heartbeat had been externalized. But just as he was about to turn it down, a shout suddenly came from behind him. Brother Jingyi, Jiang Zhiran is coming. She stared at Xiao Jingyi's hand that was about to twist, with a look of disbelief. What are you doing? Xiao Jingyi, who was smashed, was fiercely shocked. When he looked at Jiang Zhiran, he pretended to smile in a panic. No, I just remembered it, and wanted to see if there was any trace of her. Jiang Zhiran's face was gloomy. Don't you believe me? As soon as the words fell, his eyes were full of tears. Xiao Jingyi, do you know that I'm pregnant? I'm happy to come to you. This is the only comfort in my great grief, but what about you? Is that what you think of me? Xiao Jingyi hesitated. Ranran, don't be so excited. Jiang Zhiran has become worse. Are you blaming me for being emotionally unstable? She made my grandmother die with regret, but she didn't give me a word of apology. Shouldn't I be angry? Xiao Jingyi lowered his eyes, stepped forward, and hugged Zhang Zhuran. Ran, don't be angry. I just want to find out if there is a clue about her. I want to find her to admit her mistake to you. I don't mean anything else. Under the soothing of the soft voice, Zhang Zhuran's mood began to stabilize. Brother Jingyi, I'm just too scared. Grandma is my only relative, and no one can protect me in the future. Brother Jingyi, I'm so scared. The slightly trembling shoulders made Xiao Jingyi's eyes very pitiful. He left everything without hesitation, took Zhang Zhuran and left here. If you are pregnant, don't go to such a place with heavy yin qi. Obviously, it is only the last step away from the truth. Ran, don't be afraid. I will protect you forever. There was a suffocating pain in my heart. The scene is always like this, as vivid as the memory of many years ago. It was a deep night, and I crashed into his dream regardless of everything. I really want to ask him how sincere are they in the past and now. At the age of 17, I was kicked out of the house, and my biological father, who was an alcoholic and domestic violence, yelled at me. I don't have money to treat you. Get out of my house and lose money. The teenager desperately wrestled with the man, suffered injuries and pretended to be calm. Meow Meow is fine. I will always protect you. What about now? Have you found someone you want to protect more? I asked him hoarsely. Why do you treat me like this? Why do you want me to die in such pain and despair? As if waking up in a nightmare, Xiao Jingyi sat up and wet his clothes with sweat. Wearing glasses and a coat, he went straight into the basement of the villa. With all the lights on, his steps were heavy, as if he had made up his mind and stood in front of the door again. This time no one stopped him anymore. The moment he unscrewed the doorknob, the corners of his mouth trembled slightly. Meow Meow, don't scare me anymore. He muttered softly and pushed open the door. The lock in front of the freezer crashed into his sight without an obstacle. Under the faint light, the surface of the silver lock reflected his shocked and distorted face. He took out the key in his pocket. Yin Miaoling, is this your trick to play with me? In order to scare me, you deliberately locked here. In fact, you are fine at all, right? Floating behind him, I almost laughed. Tens of millions of times of self-deception is not as dazzling as the truth for a moment. My hands trembled under nervousness and fear, and the key was slow to meet the keyhole. He muttered as if to comfort himself. It'll be allos wrong, Meow Meow, you'll be fine. Until his key smoothly inserted into the lock eye and twisted smoothly. It is unlocked. He seemed to have made up his mind and subconsciously gritted his teeth. Use force pull. 4. The corpse lying in the cabinet smiled peacefully. If it weren't for the mottled blood, the fingers would be blurred. Fortunately, it was kept warm in the freezer, so that my appearance after death was not so disgusting that even the smell of the corpse was severely sealed. Xiao Jingyi gently touched the corpse in disbelief. The next second, his legs were weak and he fell to the ground fiercely. How could it be like this? It's impossible. The door of the basement was heavily closed, and Xiao Jingyi stumbled up. The steps were not long, but he fell several heels in embarrassment. When I returned to the first floor, I was already gray-headed. As soon as he opened the door, Zhang Zhuran held a glass of water and sat on the sofa with a pale face, with a little pity in his eyes. Where have you been so late? Xiao Jingyi was stunned for a moment, and his eyes were complicated and terrified. After a moment of silence, he took off his glasses and suppressed the tremor in his voice. There is something urgent in the hospital and now. It has been dealt with. This answer came to my ears, which was particularly harsh. It's done. Have you dealt with me? The truth doesn't really matter at all, does it? Zhang Zhuran walked quickly to Xiao Jingyi and leaned his head on him. I had a nightmare and woke up to see you. My heart was so empty. Xiao Jingyi touched her head, spoke softly and coaxed. Good boy, I'll sleep with you. The two people who hugged each other and slept with their own affairs. It was not until dawn that Xiao Jingyi fell asleep. In the dream I came as promised. He screamed, roared, broke down and burst into tears. I can only keep repeating one sentence. I really want to live. Why do you want me to die so miserably? Meow Meow, it's not like that, it's not like that. I really don't want you to die. I just want you to know something in the future. Don't be so careful. I really don't want you to die. He explained in fear. Facing my approach little by little, blood and tears fell to the ground. Xiao Jingyi also screamed and opened his eyes. Meow Meow. After a scream he sat up sweating profusely, but met Zhang Zhuran's eyes. Did you have a nightmare? Brother Jingyi, do you miss that woman very much? Xiao Jingyi had not recovered from the horror, and his face was distorted. Ran, did you let Yin Miaoling out that day? Zhang Zhuran's face sank, and his eyes were full of gloom. At that moment she immediately became weak and pitiful. Brother Jingyi, don't you believe me? Am I such a cruel person in your eyes? Yes, my sister has a deep affection for you. So why do you provoke me, care about me, and make me feel uncontrollable for you? Her eyes were full of tears, and Xiao Jingyi's eyes were also soft in an instant. I'm pregnant with your child. You can't do this to me. I stared at Xiao Jingyi's face carefully. He has seen my corpse. Love is a bone-chilling desperate situation. 39,103. The last trace of expectation haunts me. I really hope, even if it's only once, he can stand on my side. But he deliberately pressed his eyes, took a deep breath, and his tightly clenched knuckles turned white. Ran, I just had a nightmare. Is it just a nightmare? I laughed helplessly, and the wind pushed the bed away and swept through the room. The calendar in front of the bedside table was scraped down and smashed to the ground, and the page turned crazily. The red note circled the day of the 21st, and there was a sentence next to it. 30th birthday today, I'm going to be reborn. The 21st, it happens to be today. 5. Time goes back, and the 18-year-old teenager's eyes are firm. I must study medicine. The current medical level can't cure Meow Meow. I will open the world for you, he said. I took this road just to save Meow Meow. I really thought that he would be the god who redeemed me. When the operation was successful, he cried and knelt on the ground in a sincere voice. He said, Meow Meow, I finally did it. In the future, I want you to live a long life. He untied my 30-year-old curse with his own hands and pushed my future infinitely far. How can I be relieved? I don't understand. I think maybe people like me shouldn't have asked for anything. Love. My mother died very early, and my father drank and gambled. I lived humbly under heavy pressure. I almost subconsciously please everyone. Therefore, when I bumped into Xiao Jingyi on the way to school, even though I had a splitting headache and couldn't open my eyes, I subconsciously apologized. He carried me to the hospital. I resisted as much as I was afraid of delaying his time, for fear of contacting parents, and afraid that it would cost a lot of money to go to the hospital. I roared at him, Don't worry about me. Get out of here. But his pace was so fast that he didn't stop for a moment. Why are you so hot-tempered? It just so happens that I don't want to go to school today, so you can help me. I didn't dare to look directly at his bright eyes, carefully hiding the ridiculous self-esteem in my heart. If you love someone, you should have low self-esteem. So much so that later he faced my misery head-on, and I subconsciously wanted to escape. But his scarlet eyes swept away the embarrassment and despicableness for me. He said, Meow Meow, don't be afraid. If he dares to beat you in the future, I will avenge you. Even later, my father owed a heavy debt and wanted to sell me to others as a good. He stepped on the light and rushed to me, protecting me tightly, and roared hoarsely, I want to touch her unless I die. The teenager was in good spirits and fearless, and became the savior in my world. I really can't help but love him. Even if he became busier and busier later, the gap between us was getting bigger and bigger, stabbing my heart again and again. Even though Xiao Jingyi, who was 30 years old later, frowned and looked bored. Can you stop making trouble? She is just a family member of my patient. She is a poor little girl. Can't you stop thinking so much? But I was still immersed in his 18-year-old eyebrows and couldn't come out for a long time. I am careful and cherish the only love to protect. How can I make myself believe that it has long deteriorated and stinks, and it is no longer the perfect appearance in my fantasy? I'm really unwilling. I just wanted to fight for myself, but in the end I paid the price of my life. The teenager who stood in front of me and could do everything for me already has someone who wants to protect me more. Just like now, my body appeared in front of his eyes. He still pretended to be calm, picked up the calendar, and deliberately covered my handwriting. It's okay. I just forgot to close the window. The wind is too strong. Go on to sleep, Ran. The reservation text message of the restaurant was sent to Xiao Jingyi's mobile phone. The high-altitude couple restaurant is in a popular location, and the position is hard to grab. I set a seat half a month in advance, so I specially bought a sexy hip-wrap skirt. I'm thinking about this day, my 30th birthday, the day I broke my curse. At the end of the text message, the signature is ambiguous. I was reborn because of you. Year after year, there is only you. Love you, Meow Meow. Xiao Jingyi's expression was particularly flustered. His hands trembled for a moment, and his mobile phone hit the ground. Jiang Zhiran noticed his abnormality. Picking up his mobile phone, his eyes fell on that sentence, and Jiang Zhiran laughed in a weakable way. Brother Jingyi, it's a pity that I can only accompany you in the future. Xiao Jingyi's eyes widened. What do you mean? Jiang Zhiran blinked at him. Didn't my sister leave you and run away? He didn't even come back to see you on the anniversary, and he said that you saved her. She is simply a white-eyed wolf. Brother Jingyi, from now on, you can only belong to me. Xiao Jingyi stared at her face, and his eyes gradually feared. Ran, don't talk nonsense. Jiang Zhiran's eyes turned soft in an instant. I'm pregnant, brother. I'm just emotionally unstable, flammable and irritable. I'm afraid that you will be taken away by others. Brother, I'm just too afraid that you will be taken away. If it's ridiculous, Xiao Jingyi is particularly useful. It's like many years ago, I resisted his goodwill to me like a hedgehog, but he was tireless again and again. 6. I think he has some kind of fetish. For example, he really looks like a big hero. It's just that I was the one who needed to be saved at the beginning. He took Jiang Zhiran's hand and sat in the restaurant I had booked in advance. Jiang Zhiran's eyes were full of tears. Meeting you is the only luck in my life. I know that she is also a girl with a twisted family. When I found that the relationship between the two of them was abnormal, I questioned him, but he just said helplessly to me, Ranran's family is not good, and there is only one grandmother left to rely on each other. That's her only thought. I hope you can be kind and don't think so much. If you treat her as your sister and take care of her, you will also feel sorry for her. Meow meow, I just hope you can put yourself in your shoes and sympathiate with Ranran. It's not easy for a little girl. I really followed his words and sympathized with him, but instead of myself I tried to regard Jiang Zhuran as my sister. Even later, I went to the hospital to take care of my grandmother for Jiang Zhuran when she was emotionally broken, and ran up and down to get a medical record for her. She once said to me, Sister Meow, I really envy you. You have a kind-hearted husband. I thought she was being polite to me. Unexpectedly, that was her purpose. An hour after being locked in the freezer, she came back. I think that should be the time when Xiao Jingyi asked her to let me out. I only heard her whispering to me outside. Sister, you know, I'm very jealous of you. Brother Jingyi told me about your background. He asked me not to be stressed and let me accept his kindness with peace of mind. At that time I was thinking that if I met him first, if only it were me, he would protect me and protect me from the wind and rain, and I wouldn't have to live alone for so many years. The desire to survive made me humbly pray to her. Please, as long as you let me out, I'll give you whatever you want. I will divorce him myself and give him to you. Please let me out, okay? I really want to live. The kind of caution that has experienced despair and ushered in luck and hope. But she just sneered and interrupted my last thought. You told me on the phone that Brother Jingyi is already a married man. He really woke me up. If you are still here, what will my child do? I cried and begged. I can get a divorce. I can get out of here by myself. But Jiang Zhuran's tone was particularly cold. Sister, don't you understand yet? As long as you are still there for one day, I can't completely possess Brother Jingyi. What if you get divorced and he feels that you are lonely? The sound of her footsteps leaving was like the sneer of death. The door was closed and I lost my last inch of hope. The high-altitude restaurant on the 96th floor by the window just overlooking, as if everything is so small. The hip-wrap skirt I specially bought was worn on Jiang Zhuran's body. Xiao Jingyi doesn't seem to be determined yet, and he still sends messages on WeChat that can't be responded to. In fact, I don't quite understand what kind of comfort such a self-deception is seeking. Jiang Zhuran suddenly looked up, and his eyes were very sharp. Brother, from now on, you will only belong to me. Xiao Jingyi's face flashed with a trace of panic. Ranran, don't talk nonsense. Jiang Zhuran sneered. You don't think it's really just a nightmare, do you? Xiao Jingyi's face was horrifying, and the fork fell to the ground, smashing with a crisp sound. What do you mean? Jiang Zhuran's eyebrows are curved. Brother Jingyi, I have already applied for a passport. Let's go abroad before we are caught during this period. You should have seen her body, right? If the east window incident happens, we will all be finished. You don't want the child in my belly to lose your father, do you? Jiang Zhuran smiled particularly brightly, as if he was saying something interesting. 7. But Xiao Jingyi couldn't stop shaking all over his body. Jiang Zhuran, did you do it on purpose? The almost out-of-state roar attracted many people's curious eyes. Jiang Zhuran immediately lowered his head, twisted the corners of his clothes and looked aggrieved. Xiao Jingyi, who reacted, immediately softened his voice, but still couldn't hide the slight shock in his voice. Ranran, tell me the truth, did you do it on purpose? Jiang Zhuran's eyes were immediately full of tears. Brother, I'm just too sad and in a trance. I just forgot for a moment. Am I wrong? I'm also helping you. It's up to this point. The two of us will stay and fly together, okay? In the future you can only have me, and I will only love you. We still have our own children, and life will be very good. Brother Jingyi, aren't you moved? I floated beside the two of them, looking at Jiang Zhuran's eyes with crazy excitement and hot. It's the kind of excitement to get the same kind. Brother Jingyi, you can't leave me anymore. I stared at Xiao Jingyi's face carefully. Distortion, panic, resentment, mixed with a little regret. His tone was dull. I will surrender. I suddenly felt relieved for a moment. He got up and left the seat. He walked heavily step by step, and Jiang Zhuran quickly caught up with him. Are you crazy? She is dead. Now you only have one way to live a good life with me. But the man didn't stop. I have known him for 15 years and I know him best. He is kind, self-righteous, machismo, and particularly easy to deceive. Jiang Zhuran's eager piercing was like the last straw that crushed the camel to death. Brother Jingyi, even if it's not for me, you have to think about it for your children. Are you willing to let him be in hell mode as soon as he is born? Are you willing to let him be laughed at? Do you also want him to be as pitiful as you? Xiao Jingyi was stunned uncontrollably and stopped. The original family is the pain point that Xiao Jingyi can't let go of. He has a murderer's father. When I was beaten and abused by my biological father, he was also accused of countless malicious accusations. No one looked up to the murderer's son and was raised by being pointed at. He told me that he wanted to be a good person. He enjoys my worship, indulges in being a savior, and is eager to wash away the dirty brand on his body. I know him too well, so I know that he hesitated. The embarrassing past, the painful experience, and the child he dreamed of. He turned his head and looked at Zhang Juran with complicated and heavy eyes. Zhang Juran, did you design this long ago? Zhang Juran smiled madly. Brother Jingyi, have you forgotten? Sister Miao Miao, you pushed it into the freezer with your own hands. You told me that you want a child, give him the best life and make him happy. She can't satisfy you, but I can. Brother Jingyi, being with me is your best choice. Xiao Jingyi's face was extremely distorted. I floated in front of him and could clearly see the entanglement and pain on his face. Zhang Juran is really smart. He grasped all his pain points and did not hesitate to enter the game, just to force Xiao Jingyi into his trap. She bumped into Xiao Jingyi's arms step by step, deadly and gentle. Brother, do you know? Since I was a child, I have been looking forward to a great hero in the world who belongs only to me, who will cross tens of millions of dangers and obstacles, clear all obstacles for me and come only for me. Zhang Juran's eyes were red and his voice was sincere. I was really happy when you came to my world. I have warned myself countless times not to sink and not to lose control, but I love you. How can I make myself willing? You are such a good person, but you don't belong to me in the end. She looked up and kissed Xiao Jingyi's lips. Go with me, forget all this, go to a new place and be my own great hero. Xiao Jingyi didn't move. Let her vent her anger and bite, and tears rolled into the entangled kiss. I really hate it. Those self-righteous love is just his alms to clear his guilt. Xiao Jingyi spoke softly. Okay, I'll go with you. I really want to laugh. The last trace of expectation was also severely torn apart, and the sense of powerlessness invaded, and the despair in the refrigerator came again and again. In fact, all I want is his last bit. Guilt? 15 years of relationship. In the end, it became an ice sculpture. Why can't I be funny? The wind swept away my hatred, and it surged endlessly. I roared in his ear. Xiao Jingyi, like your father. You are a murderer and a demon. You have the same dirty and despicable blood as him. He seemed to notice something and turned around in horror, but his eyes were empty. No, I'm not. I'm not a demon. I want to be a good person. I want to be a good person. I'm not a murderer. Tears flowed into the devil's eyes and finally he muttered. I just want to punish her. I didn't want her to die. Zhang Juran frowned and wanted to drag him away, but I didn't let her go. Even if the soul suffers severe burns, I still roar recklessly. You are all murderers. It's a complete devil. A twisted and perverted madman. Xiao Jingyi covered his head and screamed like crazy. I didn't mean to kill you. Some passersby found the clue and called the police. Zhang Juran saw that the situation was wrong and left him and ran away. My soul can't live without Xiao Jingyi's body, so I can only continue to put pressure on him. The blood of the murderer will never be washed away. If you kill me, I will never let you go. He fell to the ground weakly and begged humbly. Miao Miao, I'm sorry to you, but I have a baby. He didn't wake up until the police took him away. I have a child. I can't be caught. I didn't kill anyone. Following his words, the police became serious in an instant and searched his house directly. The secrets of the basement freezer were also revealed one by one. I, who had stiffened into a sculpture, was finally able to see the sun again. A line of blood and tears has become an icicle hanging on my cheek. After autopsy and investigation, the police stopped Zhang Juran, who was about to escape at the airport. Originally, she just wanted to catch her to make a transcript, but she was obviously in a panic. Finally, the police found a flaw in her words. The two went to prison together, but Xiao Jingyi, who came to his senses, remained silent. Originally, I thought it was his disgrace for himself and guilt for me. But until one day, he seemed to have thought about it for a long time and asked, Zhang Juran is pregnant. According to the regulations, can't she go to jail? The policeman who made the transcript blurted out. Who said she was pregnant? Xiao Jingyi's face collapsed in an instant, as if he had heard some horror story, and his whole body softened as if he had been pumped and angry. I breathed a sigh of relief. That's so good. Without children, no more distorted souls will be born. Just like me, like Xiao Jingyi, like Zhang Juran, bearing the original family, he over and over again in the strange circle that he can't escape. Seems that we all just want to escape, but none of us can escape. Wait until the two of them were confirmed to be arrested for intentional homicide. I suddenly felt relaxed. The soul is clear, and he is no longer bound by the acres of land around him. I'm so happy. The world is so big that it seems that I can still fly. Until the body dissipated inch by inch. I clearly feel that Yin Miaoling will disappear forever. I'm really happy. I can escape from this world that brings me endless sadness. I just hope that if there is still a chance, someone can love me completely once. There is no other reason, unconditionally just love me. Full text completed.